These are not going to be that hard, so we're going to get into okay, so lesson 26, we're looking at the third person personal pronouns and deponent verbs. Okay, so we've got our vocabulary there. All right, and then I'm going to leave that to you. And then your postpositives. Both de and gar are postpositives.
And un.
Okay, yeah, and un. You can go ahead and write that in there if you'd like. Which means they cannot stand first in the sentence or clause, although they may be translated first. Okay? All right, third person personal pronoun. Personal pronoun. The third person personal pronoun is found in the following forms. Okay, now, how many people know what an automobile is? What's an automobile?
Car.
Okay, but it's a mobile that what?
Automatic.
It's an automobile, so in other words, it's mobile by itself, right? It's mobile of itself, right? That's auto, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so think about that, and this is where we get that word auto. It's from the Greek here. So we got autos, okay? Got autos, alte, and then auto, okay? For the masculine, feminine, neuter. And then as you move down into each of your cases, you'll notice they follow the same rules as all the other nouns do. Okay? The same case endings. Okay? These are very simple because you don't have to learn any new case endings. It's all the same case endings. Okay? And these are your third person personal pronouns. Okay? Which is of him, in him, to him, by him, all that. Okay? Go to the next page, 102. These are the plural forms. Again, the plural forms follow the same plural forms that all of your nouns do. Got that? Okay. So let me give you some examples of how you would translate it. Look on point number 2 underneath the chart on 102. The third person personal pronoun is used intensively either in the attributive or predicate position. When found used in the attributive position, it should be translated with the word same. Okay? So look at your example. Okay? Okay, so you got autos, and then anthropos. You would translate that the same man. Okay, it's attributive position because the autos has the article.
Third person.
You see it there? That makes it attributive, and so therefore you would translate it the same man.
And it's got the os ending to agree with its noun,
Exactly. It'll agree with the noun.
as opposed to it being the masculine nominative
Right. Right.
of he. Because it wouldn't make sense to say of he man,
Yeah.
the he man.
Yeah, well, and then you would use let me see. Oh, okay, I see what you mean because of the chart, the way the chart's got that right now. Yeah. Now, if you had the autos without a noun, then you could translate he. He rode his bike or whatever.
Right.
Okay, but then it wouldn't be in the attributive position. Then it would be a substantive, right? It would be because it would be acting as its own noun at that point. Okay.
And it's the same translation, whether it's first or second attributive, apparently.
Mm.
That would I get from the sample here.
Yeah. Okay, so the predicate position, though, if you got into the predicate position, that means that that your noun has the article, but your pronoun doesn't. Okay, if your pronoun doesn't, then it would be translated himself. Okay, so the man himself. Okay, you can see an example down below at the very bottom of the page. I myself am loosing.
That's similar to middle voice, right?
Yeah, that would be, that's very...
No, because you're not necessarily loosing yourself.
Oh, yeah, right, you're saying.
I myself am
myself-
loosing the dog.
Yeah, but still the loosing, it's still an active,
Okay.
still an active, right? Yeah, yeah, you're right, it would be, I am loosing myself, but then that would be different. You know,
Okay.
that you wouldn't use that same
So it's
construction.
using the same word, but because it's being used in a different way, it's different. Okay.
Right. So, okay, so, and that's the predicate position. That's really all you need to know, just read over, you got that. Okay, deponent verbs. Okay, deponent verbs. A deponent verb, that's at the top of page 103. A deponent verb is a verb that has no active form. The dictionary form is middle or passive, though these forms may have an active function.
Oh,
Okay? Now notice erkomai. See the erkomai there? It means I am coming. And when you look at that, you say, I am coming, wait a minute, that's active. But the erkomai is in the middle. My is a middle passive ending, right? That's an example of a deponent verb. Okay? It does not have an active form. There is no active form. It only has the middle passive form, but you translate it actively. Those are deponent verbs.
but they're not necessarily always active.
Well, often they're active.
You just treat that thing as the stem.
Yeah. And you know, your deponent verbs, they're semi-common. You know, they're semi-common, but you know, you don't run across them a ton, you know, so but that's what a deponent verb is. There's a little note down there at the bottom about defective verbs as opposed to deponent verbs. That's a bit pedantic. You can sit and read it if you'd like, but it's not all that important.
So first 5 sentences here.
Do I now?
The homework.
Oh,
I
on the
mean, as long as we're
homework,
here.
yeah, on the homework, let's go with the first 5 sentences, okay?
What is this note that you had on the top about true deponents?
True deponent, there are active forms, something.
Yeah.
Okay, there are active forms, okay, true deponents, there are active forms. We haven't seen them, there may have been one. Okay, in other words, the true deponent, they're just talking about in the history of the Greek language. Okay, notice the next point is New Testament deponent. There are no actives. You see? So in the New Testament, there are no actives. Again, I've got this Greek professor that's a bit pedantic, you know, so he wants to talk about, well, there actually are true deponents in the Greek language. Haven't seen any, but pretty good evidence that they're there, you know, it's kind of like a neutrino, you know, we can see the results of where they were, but so, like I said, forget about some of these little scribbly notes are just things that I wrote down as I'm in my class, and
In case he puts you on it.
yeah, and it's not that important, don't even worry about it. Just recognize that the deponent verb has middle passive endings, but it has an active, you translate it as an active. Okay, demonstrative pronouns and contract verbs. Okay, again, you've got your vocabulary there. Demonstrative pronouns. Okay, there are 2 different kinds of demonstrative pronouns. This is what we have. We call them the near pronouns and the far pronouns. In other words, this or that. Okay, I can say this Bible, or I can say that camera. Right? So it's just a matter of close, near, and far. Okay, that's basically what it says there in those 3 paragraphs. If you look over on page 106, you have a chart where you have this on one side, you have that on the other side. Okay, and all those forms. You'll notice that the only real difference on this side is that in the nominative masculine and the nominative feminine, those don't have the tau. What they have is a rough breathing mark. Okay, but then after that,
Where are you looking?
I'm looking under the this.
Okay.
Okay, under the nominative masculine, nominative feminine. Notice there are no towels, but what you do have is rough breathing marks. After that, the rough breathing mark goes away and it's replaced with a towel.
What's the dot under a circumflex mean? I ran into that.
The dot under the circumflex.
That's your rough breathing mark.
as opposed to the left
Yeah.
parenthesis,
Are you talking about under the masculine?
like
The
utas,
Utas, that's a rough breathing mark, yeah. And
as
then,
opposed to the left parenthesis?
No, it kind of is, it's just, you can't see the little line of it.
are you talking about the feminine or the
Oh,
masculine?
She's got a hat on.
oh, it's not a dot?
No, it's like a little.
It's a rough breathing
apostrophe
mark.
thing.
Under Hutas, right?
Unless, of course, you have bifocals, and then it's a
Yeah,
dot.
I get it, and
Yes, yeah, I
Joe and
just-
I have gone round and round about these stupid breathing marks because they're so hard to see.
They are.
You know, I could see them when I was in college, you know, because I had,
Out of curiosity, why
These
isn't
are
it
nice.
on the first? Because that's a diphthong? Why isn't it over the omega?
because it's a diphthong. So it's, now there's one, remember the temple?
The Omicron?
The Huron?
Yes.
For some reason, that one is over the iota instead of the, because that's not a diphthong. Yeah, or it's at
I
least
mean,
not
I was even
functioning.
Googling Koine Greek superscripts, accents. What does that dot mean?
Yeah, it's not a dot, it's a rough breathing mark.
Okay,
Okay, so, and you'll notice that the endings follow the same pattern that we would expect, right? The same patterns that we would expect. Okay, we've got the singular, and the singular at the top, plural at the bottom. Okay, so we got ikainos and ikane. Okay, so these are your that, and then the others are this. Okay? Any questions on the
On this or
demonstrative
that?
pronouns? Or this or that, yeah. Like I said, those aren't really all that hard. See, this is the part of the book where we're filling in all the little cracks now. All the little pronouns and all that kind of stuff, all the fun stuff.
Because how do you really say tutu?
where?
Say,
Genitive.
just like that, tutu.
Under this, the
Tutu.
genitive form, masculine, singular, it has a breathing mark, but how does that,
How do you pronounce it?
how do you pronounce it?
That's not a breathing mark, that's an accent.
That's an accent.
Yeah.
So you say it in
The only
French,
time you're
it's
ever gonna see a breathing mark is over a vowel.
like- we
Over a vowel at the beginning of
Very
the
beginning
word.
of it.
At the beginning of the word, right?
Okay, but how do you say it?
Tutu is what he
Is
said.
that tutu? Tutu? Okay.
Yeah, kind of like those little.
I just didn't believe that would work out that way.
Well, we've seen a lot of that, you know, like kakos, you know.
Tutu kakos.
Yeah. That's an evil tutu. Okay,
Aren't they all?
okay, contract verbs. Okay, there's a certain group of verbs called contract verbs. The reason for the name is that in the present and imperfect forms, hence another way of identifying these tenses in the case of the contract verb. The final vowel of the stem contracts with the thematic vowel to form a single vowel or diphthong. This contraction does not take place in the other tenses because of the presence of the sign coming between the final vowel and the stem and the thematic vowel, of the stem and the thematic vowel. Okay. So basically what that means is that we have some verbs whose stem ends in a vowel. Okay? In a vowel. So if you've got like, for instance, if you have fillet, or let's say you got phileo, okay? Okay? Now, phileo, if you cut this off, that's your stem. Okay? That's your stem. So, the problem with that is if I put a thematic vowel in, like that, they fight and they have to contract.
Why?
Right? They change into something else. Huh?
Nothing.
So that's why we have this little chart there. You see the chart there underneath? So stem vowel on the side. So down the side you've got epsilon. Okay? You see that? That's here. And then I've got another epsilon, which is under thematic vowel, which is across the top. Okay? And then the box that's right below that tells me what they contract into. So when I have this, then this changes to this.
seen some of these already in our verb.
Yeah, this has
parsing.
we haven't seen this, we haven't seen it done exactly like this, but we've seen it over here, we've seen it in different places. The rules are generally the same, you know, but now we're just applying it to what's called the contract verb.
But so what it's saying though is that your thematic vowel will still be an epsilon, and so we can't confuse it with the epsilon iota of the pluperfect.
Right. So you have to view it the same
Yes.
way. You have to view it the
Okay.
same way. So when I'm looking at, when I see that, okay, look, when I see this, okay, when I run across and that's what I see, then what I do is I'm like, okay, I know this is a contract verb, and not only that, but if you look over on page 108, the next page, what you'll see is that when a word contracts, or when you have a contraction there, you're going to have a circumflex over it. So when you run across this thing and you see this with a circumflex up there, circumflexes don't belong there. So it's telling you that that something happened here. Okay, that there's a contraction that's taken place.
So why didn't they put it in the chart? Why isn't there a little circumflex in the chart?
Because they're putting it in the next chart. This is just telling you what the contraction will turn into. But on this other chart, it kind of spells it out, what the actual form in the New Testament will look like.
Oh, but so it's only for that one verb?
Right.
Okay. So not all verbs will do that?
No, not all verbs, just the contract verbs.
Yeah, but not all contracted verbs will even do that, only this phileo?
No, all contracted verbs will do that. So in other words, another contract verb would be...
So phileo is the luo of contract verbs.
I'm just
Well,
curious why
yeah,
they didn't
that's
bother
the
to
example that
contract
they're
it.
using.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
example. Right. But there's many contract verbs.
So why didn't they just bother to put it on the chart on page 107, that there'd be a little...
I don't know. You're right. Maybe they should have, but they didn't.
So above the iota, you get
Yeah.
a line.
For on page 107, yeah.
But if you see on page 108,
It has it.
so you've got the uncontracted side. You see that uncontracted forms?
Yeah,
Okay, so that's showing you.
but so this applies to all, it's not just the phileo.
Yeah, this applies to all your contract verbs. They all have the same rules. That's the reason why, if you notice, on page 107, you have the epsilon, but you also have alpha. So there's some verbs that end in an alpha, and there's some verbs that end, and the stem ends with an omicron.
And so we would have known that was the thematic vowel of epsilon versus the thematic vowel of epsilon iota, because there wasn't two epsilon augments in a reduplication to show that it was a perfect. Does that make sense?
We say that all over again?
I didn't follow it either.
We would know that it was the epsilon iota for, like, it wasn't the thematic vowel, but an epsilon iota for that word right there.
So if you
Because
ran
it
across
ran-
this,
Yeah.
then you would know that that's an epsilon.
Yeah, because it didn't have the second augment of an epsilon, right?
Right, but this is what it's going to tell you. The circumflex is going
Even before that?
is
Okay.
going to tell you that I've got a contraction here, that this is the contracted form. Okay. Now on the chart, if you look at the chart, okay, on one side you've got okay, phileo. You see that? Phileo, and then you've got philo with the circumflex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, phileo, you will not find that in the New Testament anywhere. Okay? This form is nowhere in the New Testament. This form isn't either. You will find these in the dictionaries, but you will not find them in the New Testament. And the reason why is because what you're going to find is if I need to have a first person present, then what I do is I remove this. I bring this over, and then I put a circumflex. I do the same thing here. I move this over, circumflex. Okay? That's what I'll see in the New Testament for a first